Hello and welcome to this week's admin chat. My name's Suzy Sanders and I'm going to be talking to you today about all things virtual assistant. Before we get started, I would just like to say thank you. I'm just getting over a inevitable back to school cold, so I'm slightly more husky than usual, but I'm sure you won't mind. And I know time is precious. I have got some slides to share with you today, but if you want to just have me on in the background while you're working, that's fine too. I hope that you will absorb what you need to from this, whichever way you're listening today. So let's start with you. It's been an interesting year. 2020 has been dubbed the home working experiment, and at a time where we have all become virtual, perhaps you've become a little bit more aware of the virtual assistant industry. Perhaps you're curious about how you can explore working from home remotely on a more permanent basis. And today I'd like to talk to you about my experiences starting a virtual assistant business, some of the options and key considerations if you're considering exploring it. And I'd also like to talk about what a virtual assistant actually is and what they do. So about me, before we get too deep on the details, I'd like to take a moment to tell you a little bit about me, my business and my journey. I'm an ex-corporate executive assistant. Before I started my virtual assistant business, I worked for a global recruitment company and I was EA to the global chief HR officer. And as he had global responsibilities, he was here, there and everywhere. And I worked employed from a base in Northampton in the UK, from one of our head offices. So in effect, I was a virtual EA, just employed. And when my little boy came along, cliches are true, becoming a parent changes everything. And when I went back to my job following maternity leave, I really felt like my focus, my purpose and passion had changed. And it felt the right time to shake up my professional life, just as much as my personal life had transformed. So I set about starting my own virtual assistant business. And my passion and purpose has evolved as the business has evolved, but it remains true. And my purpose now is that everybody I know and I work with feels supported. And that is something that was true when I started my business. I was looking for three things for myself, but I was also looking to facilitate and support others in achieving those things. And those three things for me were freedom, flexibility, and fulfillment. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit more about the benefits of being and working with a virtual assistant shortly. But those were the reasons that drove me to start my business. And now we help our clients and our franchisees achieve those things for themselves. So Alchemy Virtual Assistance, we are a UK virtual assistant business. We're multi-award winning and we've been featured in various different publications, local, regionally and nationally. And there's a few of them on the screen there. And it's funny, when I was putting these slides together, when I think back to when I first started my business and how fearful I was about being able to find work, being able to understand how to run a business, being able to fulfill that work. There were so many fears. And now I'm considering myself very fortunate to be in a position to be able to be proudly showcasing my business and the industry that I'm so passionate about in this way. So hopefully that's a testament or a little slice of inspiration for you that anything is possible with the right mindset. So what is a virtual assistant? Well, the clue's in the name. It's an assistant that works virtually. And we're not talking about Alexa or Siri or any of those other little robotic automated assistants we have on our devices. We're talking about real life superhero assistants. There's a vast array of specialisms and niches in the virtual assistant industry, from admin, marketing, finance, bookkeeping, sales, events, executive and personal assistants. It's a broad array, offering lots of different skills and services, and to lots of different people as well. There's a lot of businesses, directors, executives, charities, households, celebrities, other freelancers and home workers. It's a lot of people who work with and are supported by virtual assistants. Now, one of my personal mantras is start with what you know and grow. So I'm using this time today to tell you about what I know about starting a business and becoming a self-employed virtual assistant, and then how you can grow from that. So as I say, the industry is vast and diverse, and this is the VA industry in a nutshell from my perspective and what I've experienced. But I do know there are a lot of companies, all companies this year, who have been using and working remotely with their assistants. But I'm starting with what I know, and I'm telling you my experience. So the VA industry, as I've alluded, it's broad, it's diverse, and it is thriving. And here in the UK, the Society of Virtual Assistants run an annual survey. And on their most up-to-date survey, there's estimated to be over 2,500 UK-based virtual assistants, supporting over 13,500 businesses. And looking at that on a global scale, there's estimated to be around 25,000 VAs worldwide. I'm sure those numbers aren't pinpoint accurate, but I wouldn't be amazed if they're not expanding over the weeks and years, as more and more people become aware of the benefits of being virtual. Which leads me nicely on. Let's talk about the benefits of being a virtual assistant. And some of these are personal observations, but some of this summary here are an amalgamation of my personal experience, but also the reasons and the drivers that I've seen echoed in other virtual assistants that I know as well. So as I said before, freedom, flexibility and fulfillment, they were my big three when I started my business. But I think there's more to those, and there's a real empowerment piece, and there's a realization that there's no glass ceiling or there's no limitations when you run your own business. There's no corporate red tape or systems or boxes to check. When you're running your own business, you are responsible for your own personal development and growth, and there's a great empowerment to that. I've witnessed that. I'm an advocate of lifelong learning, and you don't have to seek approval when you're running your own business. If there's something new you want to explore and learn, you can. And I think reflecting on this year more, there's a real drive in creating your own future. So let me put a bit of context on that. I think this year has really been devastating on so many levels. It's been very difficult for us all. But there's also the uncertainty and the fear, and I know so many talented people who've faced redundancies, been on furlough, and to some respects the stability of a job has crumbled a little bit. And there's more and more people who are wanting to empower themselves and create their own job, create their own future. So I don't want to diminish or belittle the severity of just how hard and heartbreaking this year has been. But I do also want to share a light with that. I believe you can always see opportunity or chaos. And I think there's a lot of people who are taking this year, they've been reassessing what their priorities are, and they want to move forward and create their own future. And it's an exciting time, just as much as it is an uncertain time. So, on the flip side, the benefits of working with a virtual assistant. So why would a business work with a virtual assistant? So these are just a summary of some of the the key points that our clients tell us they like to work with a virtual assistant, what they get from it. And I think it's important to note that more and more people, now we've all been experimenting and dabbling with remote working, more people are becoming comfortable with it. And I think one of the most common questions I get asked is, how do you find work as a virtual assistant? And it's a very good question with a very complex answer. I think ultimately there is enough work for everybody. And we all know during recessions, businesses are born. People become more entrepreneurial and resourceful. And the business economy does survive and it does thrive. And on the whole, those two things coming together, I think is a very good thing for our industry. Flexibility is one of the key things. A lot of smaller startup businesses don't necessarily have the traditional office setup to justify or even accommodate an employee in the traditional sense. They don't also have perhaps the long-term cash flow projections to justify or warrant it comfortably. So working with a virtual assistant is a real flexible, cost-effective way of tapping into a global talent pool and getting high caliber support from a highly skilled assistant. You get maximum commitment and productivity from a virtual assistant too as well. You're not paying for those conversations at the water cooler, or you're not paying them to make a coffee. You're paying for maximum productivity that VA will bill you for what they work and what they do. And it's fairly low risk. Having spent so many years in the recruitment industry, my belief in people has been amplified. And to a small business, people really are everything. If you've got the right people doing the right things, brilliant. But they can be a big risk to your business if you are employing somebody and perhaps you don't get quite the right fit. It can be devastating to a smaller or younger enterprise. And a lot of our clients tell us they really benefit from being able to scale up and down their support depending on their seasonal demands. But they really enjoy being able to tap into and increase their team's skill set and capabilities. If they need a specific skill or something doing for a project, they can work with a VA to plug that gap in a really flexible way. They haven't got to go through the whole recruitment process. They can pull in a virtual assistant with that skill, and it allows them to be in a real swift and agile way. It allows them to reduce time and increase impact ultimately. So sounds great. Benefits all round. So I'm a huge advocate of saying it as it is, and I'd like to share with you the raw and honest truth. It's not that easy. It's not as simple as having a laptop and the internet and being able to do what you do employed from home. When you're starting a business, it's a marathon. It's not a sprint. You're having to say goodbye to your fixed annual salary, your monthly paycheck, and you're going to have to fend for yourself in a way. And as well as having to find your clients, fulfill the work and keep them happy, you have to wear all the hats. A lot of talented assistants are the oracles in their organisation. They're very strong communicators and they know what departments deal with what functions and who does what. They see the bigger picture. But when you're starting a virtual assistant business, you don't always have those support functions around you. You have to be those departments. And that can be a real challenge. And taking into account of the current economic climate, as I've said, I think during a recession and during past recessions, people do start businesses, but there is a great deal of fear and uncertainty around the global pandemic that we all find ourselves in, which is concerning. And the virtual assistant industry isn't regulated. I think that's a good or a bad thing, depending on how you look at it. It's accessible, anyone can do it. But I think we all, as virtual assistants and as assistants, have an obligation to champion best practice and be vocal about the value of a good assistant, whether we're virtual or not. So it's not that easy. I've lost count of the times that I've said I give up, or I've cried, or it's got hard. But in truth, I don't think it does get easier. I think you just get better equipped of dealing with situations. And I think your mindset is a huge part of that. I think success in business comes down to mindset, because if you've got that in check, you can overcome any obstacle, you can learn what you need to do, and you'll have the focus and the resilience to keep driving forward to achieving your goals. So, what are the options? Lots. That's the good news. There's lots of options. If you're thinking, okay, I could do this, I want a challenge, I've got this. If you're serious about taking it to the next level and having a look at starting your own virtual assistant business or becoming a virtual assistant in your own right, there is a lot of options available to you. There's various different training options. There are lots of different virtual assistant coaches and mentors. There's also several virtual assistant franchises, my business Alchemy VA being one. There are membership sites. There are various different books, whether it be ebooks or paperbacks. I self-published my book, The Alchemy of Virtual Assistance, this year. That was my lockdown passion project that I started writing it a long time ago, and I finally got it out there. So if you'd like to find out more about what it has taken me to build my business on a practical and emotional level, you can check that out. I'll see if I can pop a link in the comments for you to have a look about what that's all about. And there's also various different freelancer sites and virtual assistant agencies to look at. So lots of options. And there's lots of resources available too. I mentioned the Society of Virtual Assistants earlier, and I'd like to mention them again. They have a lot of resources available on their website, and there's a lot of things that they do in the UK, so I'd strongly suggest checking those out. I'd also like to showcase our website. We have a lot of resources and blog content specifically for aspiring or growing virtual assistants, and please do check that out. And we have a mailing list that has those blogs on, pushed out straight to your inbox, and that content's all been designed to give value and insights. It's not a sales pitch, that's not my style. And of course we've got the wider web and social. Hang out on LinkedIn, take a look at some of the companies or people that are doing what you might like to do, and connect with them and engage with them. Regardless of how you're going to continue on this virtual assistant journey, there's a few key considerations. As I said before, if you're being a self-employed virtual assistant, you're wearing all the hats, you are all the departments, so there's a lot of things to get straight and aligned. And these on the screen here are some of the key considerations that I feel any wise virtual assistant needs to have nailed down. So I'll share them out. If you are listening, not watching, you'll need to make sure you've got adequate business insurance. Here in the UK, we have the Information Commissioner's Office, who are the body to ensure data protection and GDPR compliance. They'll need to be registered with, and obviously you'll need to make sure you are compliant from those perspectives. You'll need to make sure that you've got adequate terms and conditions that cover you and your client, that cover compliance and making sure you're operating within the law. Because there's various different regulations that you'll need to be aware of, such as IR35. And compliance and legality aside, you'll also need to be clear on your pricing and your rates, on your sales and your marketing, on your services and your delivery, on your finances too, from bookkeeping to accountancy to tax returns. All very important functions to ensure you've got lined up. And cybersecurity is something to consider as well. Every business has an obligation to keep data and information secure, even more so a virtual one. And client development and retention as well. A lot of VAs always, and a lot of the questions I get asked are always around how do I find work? But actually a huge importance needs to be placed on developing those relationships and retaining them once you've won that work. And that can be a big job. So there's some of the key considerations any wise virtual assistant will have on their mind and in their business plans. So this year, I know a lot of my friends have started businesses, whether they be side hustles or born out of redundancy and a change of perspective. So there's three pieces of advice that I'd like to share with you. I offer out to anyone who's considering changing their profession. Work on what success looks like to you. What is it that you want to achieve? Success is so personal and so subjective. So if you start with that now, you'll be able to work out how to get there easier. But B, you won't lose sight of that. And when things do get tough, you know what it is you're trying to achieve and you know where you're going. You can lean back on that. So define what you want to achieve and what success looks like. Then you'll know if you've got there. You'll know if you've achieved it. But let's strip this back. So once you know what success looks like, explore all of your options. Don't dismiss anything, because you don't know until you look at it in detail. So explore all of your options. Then you can identify which route is going to get you to where you want to be. And my personal opinion, needs to be in the most fulfilling, effective and fun way. So they're the three things. What success looks like to you, exploring your options, and working out which route is going to bring you the most success. So we're coming towards the end of this session. I'd like to review what we've gone through before we're through and before we part ways. So we've covered what a virtual assistant is and does. We've talked about the benefits from all angles. I've shared a little bit of the raw and honest truth about starting a business with you. And I've given you some options to explore and some resources to check out. And we've covered some key considerations for any aspiring virtual assistant to keep in mind. So a parting thought. I'm aware you might not be wanting to explore your virtual assistant ambitions quite just yet. Perhaps you are. Or perhaps you're just happy employed working remotely. Wherever you find yourself today. I think these two parting thoughts, I hope, will bring some insight and empowerment to you. Collaborate, champion and elevate. I think that's something that we're all responsible for, whether it be as a virtual assistant in the virtual assistant industry or as an assistant in the assistant industry. We should all be collaborating, championing and elevating each other and our profession as a whole. And my second parting thought, never forget how wildly capable you are. The only limitations that we have are the ones that we create for ourselves. You can achieve anything if you could put your mind to it. And as my gran always used to say, there's no such word as can't. There is always a way. So thank you. Thank you for joining me today and for bearing with me through my husky tones. And a huge thank you to Executive Secretary for giving me the opportunity to showcase the virtual assistant industry in this way. Let's connect and let's share. If you found today helpful, even if there's a tiny little slither of something, please share it. Connect on LinkedIn. Be sure to tag me in and to tag in Executive Secretary so we can connect and continue to learn and support each other. So my name's Suzy Sanders, my business is Alchemy Virtual Assistance, and I'm very grateful to you for joining me for this week's admin chat. Take care.